Good morning. How's it, everybody?
Another Friday morning.
Gaya Stepanian. Did I get that right? All right.
Stepanian.
Stepanian. Got it. Gaya Stepanian. Welcome. Where
I'm
are
super
you
excited
at?
for this one.
I know, me too. It's a neat one. Where are you at geographically?
State of South.
Oh, cool. All right. We're up in Baltimore. Not too terrible.
Yeah,
far
not
away.
yeah, 5 hours, 6 hours, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, my brother's down in North Carolina, so it's as far as I have gotten. A friend of ours' son just got into Citadel. Is that in South Carolina? I feel like it.
It's on the coast.
It's on the coast. Okay. But it's in South Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. See,
yeah.
Now he wants to go visit. So I might actually be going to South Carolina for the first time. It's like,
yeah, it's beautiful out there.
It is beautiful. Yeah. I've heard wonderful things about it. So, hey, I want to get right into it. I'm with Tom on this one. We get to talk to a lot of cool people about a lot of cool things, but I've never even thought enough to ask about this biomagnetism and all this neat stuff that you're into. I cannot wait to crack this open. So
see, and I've got weird opinions being an acupuncturist, and like, look, I got some magnet patches right here. I've got some bigger magnets. But, my mentor even said some stuff that came out, some studies in Japan in the 80s. And they're like, if you get this wrong, and I was like, it's their magnets. How bad can they hurt you? So I've got some questions around that, too.
Yeah. So with that, Gaya, just kind of walk us into how you got into this and we'll kind of take it from there.
Well, I was having a conversation with my sister on the phone 15 years ago. And my aunt, she suffered of lupus. She had been progressively worse. She'd been suffering with lupus for about 25 years. And coming from a public health, mental health background, for me, lupus was an incurable condition.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister said to me, "Oh, you didn't hear? She doesn't have lupus anymore." And of course, my eyes are rolling and I'm thinking, my sister's lost her mind.
Yeah.
And she told me, no, her doctors had discharged her. And so when I talked to my aunt later that week, in fact, her doctors had discharged her. After 25 years of progressive degenerative lupus, she no longer had it. And so I looked at I heard my sister because we were talking on the phone, and she said, yeah, she tried something called biomagnetism. She doesn't have it anymore. She's like, in fact, I found a practitioner in LA and I did 2 sessions and the arthritis in my hands is gone. Now, my sister historically was a bit of a hypochondriac. So for her to say that she was cured of anything was miraculous. And so she had my attention at that.
Yeah, I like her already.
I didn't really think that the story about my aunt was true until I confirmed and talked to my aunt. But the part of my sister saying her arthritis was gone definitely captured my attention because I had never heard her say something in the positive about healing. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I had a really bad tendonitis in my elbow. I could not carry even half a gallon of milk. I had pain at night, couldn't sleep well. I was battling with this for about 1.5 years. So, she piqued my interest and I found a practitioner. At the time I lived in Florida, and there was a practitioner in Tampa who practiced in hospitals, and I was in Miami, and he was willing to drive to Miami if I gathered enough people, and I sure did. And after the first session, the tendonitis was about 80 to 90% better. A month later, I had a second session, and it was gone. 3 months later, I was in the kitchen, and I had regular milk with my coffee and I wasn't bloating. And I realized that I had been having sour cream, cheese, and I no longer had lactose intolerance. And it was a moment where it was like, what is going on here? And then I turned to this woman who would help me in the house. And he had done like a little mini session on her because I didn't know this, but she would have migraines ever since she had her first menstrual period. So ever since she was 14, she would get a monthly migraine. And I turned to her and I looked at her and I said, "Hey, whatever happened to your migraines?" And she looked at me and she said, 3 months had passed since she had that session. And she said, "You know what? I haven't had one since that man put those stones on me."
That's interesting. And that's funny to me, actually, that a common thread between all those is that it was such a subtle fix that people almost didn't even realize it happened. Like it was like quietly working.
I was paying attention to the tendonitis, and he didn't really explain what he was doing. He just started muscle testing with my feet. I didn't even know what muscle testing was. And then he started putting magnets on my body.
And that was it? He just laid magnets on different areas of your body?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long? How long was the session?
I think he left him on for about 20 minutes.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm fascinated clinically here.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know, like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he left him on for about 20 minutes. And so I didn't know it at the time, but what he was doing, he was exploring and my body to see where he needed to put the magnets on and what was hiding in those areas that was causing the issue. But he was doing more than just tendonitis issues. He was exploring whatever was out of balance in my system. I figured that out later. But yeah, that was the beginning of biomagnetism in my life.
And it's funny, Tom, I'm just going to put words in your mouth for a second, but I've been into Tom's clinic a few times for different things. And, you know, I think it from a recipient standpoint, you go in with one thing, and then as soon as you have a practitioner's hands on you, now it's like, okay, well, we know why
here's this, here's this, here's this
other things. Like, and that was something as a non-clinical person that I wasn't really, I guess, sensitive to, or understanding. And now having done it a lot, it makes a lot of sense where you're just like, thank you for telling me what your opinion is here, but I'm going to just kind of tell me what your body has got telling me, right?
I think that's exactly it. And from what Gaya, you were just telling us, when we look at these, and I think this is where we use the word holistic appropriately, right? Where it's not just like that thing might have gotten you in the door, right? The tendonitis might have brought you to the clinic, but we know, and this happens in traditional alternative medicine, and holistic is probably, like I said, the best term in this case. We're not just looking at the symptom there, but like, who's this person as a whole? And we'll see tendencies through different systems. Right. Okay. So if we see this over here, could mean this, and this. It doesn't guarantee. But then we want to go correct that underlying thing to keep those tendencies at bay, you know? And at least that's it from East Asian medicine. But that's why these more subtle therapies, I'll say subtle here, like magnet therapy, acupuncture, you know, even like, tuning forks and stuff like that. You know, I think that's where this kind of shines.
You know, acupuncture originally used fractional tiny little magnets instead of needles. And then they realized that with needles, they could connect with the meridians at a deeper level. And so magnets have been used for over 5,000 years in recorded history in all continents within the planet. They were lost. I think a lot of these wonderful medicines were lost for 200 years when conventional medicine hit the, you know, mainstream and platform, and were negated in terms of their value. But this is powerful medicine. You know, acupuncture is powerful medicine.
And when I hear you say things like, oh, he went into work on tendonitis and I lost lactose intolerance, like to me, I'm like, well, if you have an intolerance, if you have a lactose intolerance, then inflammation is probably going to be chronically higher than normal. And tendonitis therefore becomes.
And I was going to say, you have a family history of these inflammatory disorders, because lupus is an autoimmune disorder that, like, chronic inflammation. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's your aunt, sense, you know?
Right? Yeah.
It's
yeah. So like when you know, I don't know how to ask this question, but like, there's a lot of people that have these sort of unexplained, well, not unexplained, but confusing to most modalities. Magnets is the one for today. Like, but we see this a lot. Oh, look at all these things it can do. It can cure this and help this and blah, blah, blah. You know, is there sort of, I don't know, a yardstick to measure like what things are better treated with this modality versus not? I mean, how do you sort of categorize what magnetism can do?
You know, it's a great question. When I first tried the biomagnetism, I didn't really understand its reach. I was just kind of like, well, let's try it. We'll see. When I found my second set of practitioners, and I remember in my very first session, they said, oh my God, you're holding on to rage. And And who are you so angry at? And at the time, it was with me. I had made some poor business decisions. I lost a lot of money. I was at the time a single mother with 3 kids. I felt so guilty for my poor decision making with 3 kids. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And I had been to psychotherapy. I had been to hypnosis therapy. And here I had this biomagnetic practitioner tuning into all this anger when she just started muscle testing. And sure enough, a couple of days later after the session, I was crying on the floor, having this like serious conversation with God. I was so upset. And that really was the beginning of understanding that everything that we develop in our body, probably 99% of our conditions are linked to some emotion.
Mm.
You know, and that tendonitis was emotionally my worrying about money because I had lost so much of it, you know, and I was in bad financial shape. And the elbows in Mexico, they say, oh, when you're stingy, they call you codo, and they tap their elbow because they say you're being stingy because you're worrying about money. And so there's an emotional tie with worrying about money and elbow pain or issues around the elbow. And so that was just the beginning of me being able to understand that we can literally map out the body in terms of where our emotions hide and how those influence the symptoms and conditions that we're going to develop. And so from a scientific standpoint, how do we explain magnets? Well, if we look at the smallest particles within the human body, our atom is composed of a neutral charge, a neutron, positive charges, protons, and a healthy one would be an equal number of negative charges, electrons. So when we apply therapeutic magnets on these atoms, cells, tissues, organs, we can restore the normal state of the atoms. We can restore the normal state of our cells and really heal anything. I would say that the only issue that I've seen, two issues in the last 15 years that I've seen that are kind of difficult with biomagnetism have been what's it called? The ringing in the ears right now. It's like
tinnitus or tinnitus.
Tinnitus is like a 50-50. You know?
That's a bitch regardless of the modality. Like I the first patient I had in clinic that came in with it, I did a deep dive. And Chinese medicine is like, look, you know, if it's this kind of tone, maybe, and if it sounds like water rushing or crickets, sorry, you know, and even that, you know, Western medicine is like, well, we can sever the nerve.
Yeah.
It's like we can turn it off, but you might lose hearing.
Yeah. So that would definitely be, and I've spoken to some of my friends who are acupuncturists, and you know, they tell me the same thing. It's like hit or miss. It's like a 50-50.
Yeah.
So there's a 50% chance that we can resolve it, but there's also a 50% chance that we can't. You know, maybe it can improve, but not necessarily 100% resolve. So, you know, I'm very honest with my clients when they tell me, hey, I got tinnitus, can you do something for me? And I'm like, maybe, right? And the other one would be Parkinson's. We can stop the degenerative process with Parkinson's that I've seen, and in some cases reverse the trembling and lessen it.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the getting to zero. At this point, I've seen significant improvement and definitely stopping the degeneration. Those would be the 2 areas that I would say,
Yeah, that is interesting. So basically anything else because of that cellular, I guess we'll call it realignment or whatnot, like you think that basically it opens up a pretty broad swath, it seems, for what it could be therapeutically beneficial for.
Yes. I mean, I've seen people, you know, who were completely paralyzed, who were, you know, on death's door, and, you know, many practitioners had seen them and said, listen, we've all tried something. Nothing has worked. Are you willing to give it a try? And I said, sure, if they're willing, I'm willing. And I had this one client, he was totally emaciated. He was skin and bones, had been in a wheelchair for 5 years, was progressively just withering away. Doctor said he wasn't going to last a month. And in 5 sessions, he was moving hands and feet. He had gained weight. He was eating. All the sores on his back had disappeared. He was smiling. He was speaking more clearly. And so that was huge. But I've worked with people with multiple sclerosis, with muscular dystrophy, I used to have scoliosis. I don't have scoliosis anymore. So it can help us realign and regenerate bone tissue. This one's going to sound really crazy, but my son, he 2 years ago had an accident on his scooter, flew off the scooter. His friend who was on the back of the scooter landed on top of him. He broke 14 ribs in 16 different places.
Whoa.
He had 3 paralyzed lumbar fractures. And
Jesus, how fast were they going on the scooter? My God.
I know.
Holy crap. That sounds terrible.
Down a big hill.
Yeah. My God.
And within a month, he was back to the gym lifting weights. And I mean, not little weights. You know, this guy's an athlete. He was big weights. He was lifting weights within a month. His trauma nurse, coincidentally, was at the gym. His friend who had landed on top of him and nothing had happened to him.
Of course not. He had a nice pillow to land on.
Yeah. He's like, look who's here. And so when the trauma nurse looked at him lifting weights, he couldn't believe his eyes. He's like, how is that even possible? It could take 3 to 5 months to heal a single rib. So that's.
Now, when you get into those more like heavy duty accident thing, like this was obviously quite a bit different than just tendonitis, right? Is that sort of like a 3 times a day for like 14 days, whatever?
Or are we just taping them on and they keep them on?
Yeah.
Constantly?
Like, I mean, how do you have to change the aggressiveness of the treatment for these sort of more acute issues?
Well, the story gets a little more interesting. So just listen up, viewers, just be open-minded.
Okay.
So
I love when stories start like that.
I had just landed in Miami because I have a practice there too. And that's when my son called me. He had been in the trauma center for 2 days. He could barely talk.
Oh, wow.
He could barely get a breath in. I mean, that's a lot of broken ribs pressing against your lungs.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
He was in significant pain, could barely breathe. And he had been there for 2 days. He didn't want to tell mom. And I was like livid. Why had no one told me? My ex-husband was there for 2 days with him. His sisters knew. Nobody told me. And it was my son didn't want me to know. He didn't want me to worry. He didn't want me to know. And I was like, but I have tools to help you. And
sure.
What if he had been paralyzed? Like I was like overwhelmed with just frustration and anger. And I knew, I knew that I was going to blow up at his dad. So I was struggling with like, okay, I'm going to cancel all sessions. I'm driving or flying to Gainesville where he was 5 hours away. And it was like God was talking in my ear and he was saying, stay put, work on him remotely. You're not even going to be able to move him. You're going to avoid the fights that you're going to have with your ex. You're going to avoid the fights that you're going to have with the doctors. You're going to avoid upsetting your son more, and just work on him remotely. Because we are electricity and because we have magnetite in our pineal gland and magnetite in our heart, and the earth has tons of magnets, we can, like we're doing right now, remotely without wires, having a conversation because the computers have magnets, because the cell towers have magnets, because all this AI technology is relying on magnets to be able to function. We humans have it within our biology. And so I connected with him. I worked on him remotely morning and night for 3 days consecutive. By the second day, he could get up and go to the bathroom with help. By the third day, he'd get up and go to the bathroom without help. And on day 5, his dad was able to drive him from Gainesville to Miami. And my mom, who was a trauma nurse, said to me, she's like, keep doing whatever you're doing, because there is no way this kid could tolerate that drive without being in excruciating pain. And I saw him on day 6 to do a session on him and dad in person. And I think I only did 2 sessions on him in person. So it was a combination of 8 sessions that I worked on him. Probably within the subsequent months, I think I did 2 more remote sessions on him. And yeah, that was...
So really, it's not a lot.
Now I've got this huge question about what does a remote session look like? I mean, I've heard stories of, and not just in voodoo, but where they have a surrogate doll, or it's a photo, right? We've had some quantum healing people on that, say send a photo. So what is like, because I'm truly interested in what does this distance healing look like in that kind of a setting?
Yeah, it's you don't need a photo. I mean, if you think you need a photo, you need a photo, but you don't need a photo. I simply use magnets. I place them on the therapy bed as if the person is lying in front of me. They're laying wherever they're laying. As long as I have their permission, I can do it. And they, in real time, are receiving the benefit of the magnets to the point where he healed, right? I mean, it's not a little thing, right? 50% of my clients I've never met before. They're in other countries or in other states. Or sometimes within
that's a much larger number.
That is pretty surprising right there.
Yeah, that's a much larger number than I would have thought you would say.
Yeah. Well, during COVID, because people couldn't leave their homes.
Sure, yeah.
Or if they were in the hospital, people became way more open to remote work. And so it just really shifted how many of my clients, and then, word spread that the work could with equal effect, impact their health. From getting them off respirators, from getting them out of the hospital, to being able to resolve whatever, COVID issues they were detecting, or any other health issue.
So now the science guy comes out of me here a little bit, and I want to, when you start getting into remote healing, and this all makes sense. So like Tom said, we've had a bunch of people that do similar, not with magnets, but similar
different modality, but different modality. This idea of remote.
But you're certainly
therapy.
Not the first person we've talked to that has talked about remote anything, right? Like the idea that we can do anything remotely is certainly familiar. But here's my question. If you have magnets and they work and that's great, but if it also works when they're not there, how much are we now into placebo mode, like into placebo territory?
Yeah, that's a hard one to kind of tease out even.
It's an impossible question to answer. This is more of like an intuition question, because it's obviously we don't have like a yardstick to measure this. It's not like there's a real quantifiable thing here, but I am curious. I mean, is it coming into play here?
I would argue that science has changed, right? We now understand that everything exists within a quantum field.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the 70s. So in the 70s, we had wires on our phones. The only people that could see each other on a phone were the Jetsons. And we thought,
yeah, of course.
Oh my God, that's like futuristic alien type technology. And here we are all talking and chatting on our cell phones, and we have AI creating videos.
One of the greatest cartoons, by the way, of all time. I love it.
I'm so upset because there were so many things that we should have had by now.
Yeah.
Like that was like 2020 was when the Jetsons was set in.
Yeah.
Now, just so you know, we passed Jetsons age. No one has flying cars.
Yeah. I'm pretty.
I got a sticker of Rosie on my Roomba, if that counts.
You've got like hover surfboards. You've got hover technology planes that are hovering is coming down, and they're going to have like these hovering airplane taxi service, and all of this is related to magnets. Magnets are the minerals that I think the world is like battling over right now, because we need them for all of this. And we have it internally inside our biology. So why are we going to think that all this equipment that we create as humans, right? Because we design it, we create it. How could we for a second think that it's more capable than we are? This is not placebo. This is understanding that we are far more capable than what we've thought.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets interesting with me with remote, because I'm, physical medicine, whether that be a needle in my scalp or, a supplement in my mouth or whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
You can get me on board with that all day long. Like I'm down every rabbit hole you've ever heard of, for sure. Like, I mean, I love all of that stuff. But when I say placebo, I think what I go into is sort of, placebo also involves that quantum layer for me, right? Because it's like, maybe it's my mind, but is my mind not a product of the quantum, influence of this? Like, I mean, in other words, are they not basically different ways of describing the same thing?
I almost feel like oh God, I got so much to say here, because what popped into my head as we were talking about tinnitus before, there's one Chinese herbal formula that they use for tinnitus. The key ingredient is magnetite. It doesn't work well, but it's pretty funny that is the one use of that herb. Magnetite is for tinnitus. But the other thing is, I think it would be kind of cool to set up a remote healing type experiment, and it could be magnets, it could be anything, where you have same patient, or same patients, you probably would want a couple. One, you're not doing anything to, they don't know it. And then two, you would do the magnets or whatever the modality was remotely, and then you could switch it. Which one did you feel more from? Ask the patient, right? So it's not double blind, but it's at least single blind. And just as that's just as my curiosity.
Like I want to be the guinea pig in something like that. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I mean, it just sounds really cool, and really kick the tires on that. We had Dean Radin on recently, and he wrote a bunch of books on, his last one was called The Science of Magic, right? And all these research that shows, yes, we can have an effect, right? And call it quantum field, call it, chi, call it whatever, that we can have this effect at distance on people. And that's pretty amazing that we're starting to be more open to that. And I think an experiment like that, I would say, I would venture to say that you would be more than statistically significant.
It's interesting because I think most people like me, when I tried biomagnetism for the first time, I was open to it, but I wasn't expecting much. I never heard about it.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was expecting it to change my life or anything like that. I didn't expect my tendonitis. I was hoping for some kind of relief, but I really didn't believe it. I didn't understand it. And most of my clients, when they sign up for the remote work, they're kind of open to it, but they're very healthy level of skepticism. So it's not like they're expecting to be healed. They're more like, am I going to notice anything? They're far more on the skeptical side than on the, and just kind of like saying, well, I trust her, she's not going to lie to me. So maybe I'm going to give it a try. But their level of expectation is very low.
Yeah.
And then their migraines disappear, their bones heal. They're they go back to get tested and their tumors have reduced. So it's hard to say placebo is so much of a factor because typically people are their expectations are way, way low.
Right.
Way low.
I see what you're saying. So
yeah, Gaya,
that makes sense.
Ask,
that's a good differentiator.
If is this, and I'm sure there's multiple reasons why people would seek you out if they're skeptical, but is this, I've tried everything else? Is this almost like a desperation?
Most of my clients have either tried everything on the conventional side or have tried a variety of things on the alternative side, or both.
Yeah.
And they come because someone, typically 95% of my clients come through recommendation.
Referral. Yeah.
And they come because they've heard it from multiple people. You got to go see her. You got to go try this. You got to try it, And so they get to a point where they're desperate enough to say, well, what the heck, let me try it. And what have I got to lose? So
how much of it is, would you say this, and I'm not trying to stroke your ego here, how much of this is the secret's not the recipe, it's the chef, where it's it's not so much the magnets as it's something you're doing? Because I know a ton of Reiki practitioners, right? And clearly they all love Reiki. They all went through and they got their certification. They're all working on people, and I really feel like some of them excel at it. And then others are really nice people that think they're doing something, but I just laid on the table for an hour. You know what I'm saying? And I don't even know how to word that better, but is there something you think unique about you, or are you completely out of the experiment? Could you, I'm almost like, take Matt, tell him where to put the magnets and it's still going to work the same kind of thing?
Well, I train people in biomagnetism. I'm on a certification course. So I would say that some people pick it up really quickly.
Okay.
And even within a 3-4 day training, they're already seeing results with their, family members or friends who are serving as, their volunteers. And so it's something that anybody can learn. And yes, of course, your level of commitment. So I trained in Reiki, and the first time I finished my trainings, I was like, I don't think I'm a Reiki practitioner because of the training. So I took it again with someone else. And then I was like, I still feel kind of wonky about this information. And I didn't feel, it wasn't until I took it the third time with these incredible teachers, very wise men. And then I felt like, oh my God, I finally learned Reiki. So, but that's my commitment to.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And so the same thing with biomagnetism. I learned with one instructor, and then I continued to learn. And then I realize, okay, this is all wonderful information. This is very helpful, but there's more to it. And so I'm an investigator. I am skeptical. I am constantly questioning. So I think there's a healthy level of my wanting to provide the best possible care. And that's just my personal ethics.
Sure.
And we're all so very different.
Yeah.
But I think that's true for anything. You know, no two doctors are the same. No two acupuncturists are the same. No two Reiki practitioners are the same. It's like, what's your level of commitment to the trade and to the work and to how you want to deliver this to people? And are you open to continuing to learn and improve? Or do you think you've got, like, you know, you learned it and this is it and that's it? You know what I mean? And so
Sure.
Taking the ego out of the equation, I think, is important, because when you come into a practice, whether it's as a doctor, as an acupuncturist, as a biomagnetic practitioner, if you're doing it to truly help people, not with your ego, but with a level of humility that says, I really want to make a difference. I really want to help, if the person is open to receiving the help and willing to help themselves, because, you know, nobody's God, right? We have to help ourselves, and we have to have a healthy level of, as a client or patient, to say, I've got to do my part in all of this. So I would say it's a combination of things.
I'm going to say that was probably the best possible answer
Yeah. No,
anyone
like
could have given. And I like that you removed your ego from it. And you're absolutely right. And I had this conversation with another acupuncturist the other day about somebody that had been out for a while. Right. And I said, but what's their level of commitment? Yes, they've held a license this long, but have they studied more? Have they tried to work on self-improvement? What are they doing to better connect to the patient? And I wasn't attacking this person, but the other acupuncturist said, yeah, I don't think they've done anything. And I go, yeah, see, this is
right.
This is why at a clinical level, this person isn't performing where you would expect somebody who has been licensed this long.
And I'll just take it from a different angle to say, my kids often make fun of me for the level I go into these things that I get involved in. Like, I go real deep into these things. And I said to them always, listen, if it's something I'm interested in and something I want to do, then I don't want to waste my time doing it. Like, if I'm only going to half-ass it or call it in, or if I'm going to learn 10% of what I need to learn to be knowledgeable about something, then it's really not worth it. And I shouldn't commit any time to it, because then I could have a whole bunch of more free time to do something else. And so I tend to get into things that I'm willing to kind of go deep into. And again, I'm not doing it through a clinical lens, but just as can I talk about it on the show? Can I talk about it fluently with other people? Like, I want to know things so that I know, like, what do they call it in medicine? Therapeutic dose, right? Like, I want to take a therapeutic dose of knowledge, not a, fairy dust of
not the bumper sticker version.
Yeah, not the bumper sticker version. So I do appreciate that answer, because from that perspective, it's like, no, look, I could, you were licensed at the end of Reiki V1. Like, you could have just
gone. Yeah.
And you're like, nah, V2 sounds like the right idea. And then V3 ended up being the one that worked. I mean, that takes an amazing amount of, like, self-awareness and sobriety about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think that's kind of a neat way to look at it. And honestly, if I need magnet work now, I'm like, well, I only want to talk to, like, you about this. Like, I don't,
Yeah, you want the person that's gone the deepest. Yeah,
but like, I like that you went deep on this. I mean, I could listen, I don't take this the wrong way, but I can also see somebody setting up shop at a kiosk in a mall saying they do the same thing. And I'm not sure this is the same person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, these are not, you and that person are not the same, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that if we deliver whatever our trade is from a place of integrity, then that'll carry us.
Sure.
Right? If we are cheapening a trade or tricking people or being a sharp, that's just not. It's not aligned with me.
So I'm curious. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, because this is a related field, and Matt actually owns a PEMF mat, right? Clearly, the word M or the letter M is for magnetism in there. How much of an overlap? How much different is it? Could you kind of give us, an overview of that a little bit? Like, because there's some similarities. Clearly, the PEMF is drawing power and hitting the body very differently than saying like a biomagnet. But, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Is it emitting both negative and positive polarities, or just the negatives?
I think it does produce both, because that's how it creates the wave pattern.
The current,
so, yeah. So, and I think they have more of a square wave, so it's not quite as simple as turning it on and off. It's more of a modulation of sorts. I'm not super clear on how they generate that, so my knowledge kind of ends right there. But I do know that they use the square wave, so there's some manipulation involved in that for sure.
I mean, if we think about it, the Earth is a huge magnet. And so grounding, funny story. I was organizing this series of classes for these instructors who were teaching pranic healing from Spain. And day 5, we're done with all the classes. We're all exhausted. I hadn't really eaten, and they wanted to celebrate the end of the trainings with some wine in my backyard. And so we're having some red wine, and I'm not necessarily a red wine drinker, certainly not 2 glasses, but there I was on my second glass.
Yeah.
Not very much food. And I got so nauseated. I had to go run to the grass. I kicked off my shoes. I did my business. And then I just grounded, palms and feet on the grass. And all the spinning and the nausea disappeared in 30 seconds. So I think there's something to be said about the PMF mats in terms of helping us ground and reset, because ultimately, the earth is medicine. And that's why the indigenous people across the world all talk about the connection with the earth and grounding, and how that can really help stabilize our cells. If we are electrons, protons, and neutrons, then that contact with the earth or with a magnetic field that balances our charges is going to help us stabilize, boost our immune system, and really kind of help recalibrate us. Now, in terms of biomagnetism, in biomagnetism, we're doing a lot of connecting with cellular information in the muscle testing or the kinesiology. It's like a different level of kinesiology, because we're not looking for a muscular reflex. We're observing for that, but we're really connecting with, I guess, what you would say the Akash, or, the wisdom stored within our body. To guide, I scan over 500 different specific body points to see if there are bacteria, parasites, yeast, viruses, heavy metals, chemicals, trapped emotions, trapped behaviors, imbalanced chakra centers, and what have you. And so when you apply them strategically to these areas, you can realign a spine. You can, help get rid of specific conditions. I had a client call me, I don't know, it was maybe 6 months ago, and she said to me, she's like, "You got me pregnant." And I was like, "Whoa.
Hold on.
Your husband got you pregnant."
Yeah. Let's be clear here.
Over the years, I've had women come into the clinic and say that too, and it doesn't land right. It's like, no, let's reword that. Please reword that.
Yeah.
So funny. But her and her cousin had come to see me for infertility issues. They had been trying for at least a couple of years. And, and both of them within a month of each other got pregnant after one session. And so, I hadn't heard from them in a good, almost 2-year period. And they both had their babies, healthy babies, and what have you. And so that was a really funny experience. Funny. I don't know. Could a PMF mat do that? I don't have the research to tell you yes or no, but I would say that it's definitely something that can help recalibrate us. With people with chemotherapy and radiation therapy, I would say caution. Because with people who've had chemo, radiation, or a lot of MRIs with radiated iodine, their bodies are so acidic, right? There's so many chemicals in their system that I would say in those cases, they should only be using the negative polarity, because that's going to help alkaline their systems. And so usually with those clients, I only work initially with the negative polarity to help cleanse the higher levels of toxicity and acidity in their systems. So that would be my only word of caution.
So I was going to get into the nuts and bolts of the more mechanical side of this, and this might be the best segue ever. It didn't occur to me until you just said that a magnet does have a north and a south, and so that is part of the equation, it seems. Which side of the magnet do I flip over? Is that fair?
And that reminds me of, my mentor when he was in Japan. He was in there in the 80s and 90s, and magnet therapy was kind of a craze during that time. And then one study came out, he said probably early 90s, that said if you get the polarity wrong, there's a chance to increase the likelihood of cancer. And I don't know the details of the study. It was published in Japanese, but it scared the country a little bit. So they backed off of it. It still exists, but I don't think it was. I think after that one, it wasn't having the heyday. So yeah, I think there's to echo Matt's safety question here.
Well, it was more of a practical question.
Yeah, yeah.
How does that work?
In all other circumstances, if you use both polarities, you're fine. And,
okay.
My question would be, well, who created that study and
Sure.
what was the intention behind it?
I gotcha.
To dismantle magnetism as a form of, because it's been used for 5,000 years in recorded history, right? And in the 80s, we had the chief medical director of NASA, Richard Boringmeyer, who was able to help the astronauts. Because if you think about it, every time we fly and we're further from the Earth's magnetic field, the further we get from the Earth's magnetic field, the more destabilized our cells get. I work with a lot of people who work in the airlines, and they have their own slew of health issues because they're staying in hotels. They live in condos most of the time, and they are flying. So they're off the ground. So their cells are constantly destabilizing. So that grounding is so important. And now that they sleep with magnets on, I've coached them to put them in certain places to help you guys ground so that even if they're staying in a condo or in a hotel, that their symptoms have disappeared and they're much more healthy. So anyway, Richard Boringmeyer, he sends off these very healthy astronauts into space, and they all come back with one shorter leg. This is 1988. They all come back with one shorter leg. They come back with osteoporosis, with immune disorders, with gut issues, with anxiety, with insomnia, and the gamut of issues and pain. And so he does this biomagnetism with them, writes papers, and writes books, and starts, obviously this is like a high level scientist. So he's attracting like the greatest minds around the world. And before him was Dr. Roy Davis, who had an institute at the University of Florida. And Roy Davis was another brilliant scientist. He coined the term biomagnetism. And he was also attracting some of the most brilliant minds. Countries would contract him. India contracted him to get rid of epidemics with biomagnetism. The government, the US government, contracted him to help them really unravel the link between biomagnetism, or biological magnetism, and nuclear physics. So the NASA guy was one of his students. So these are so that's why this, snowball of interest in magnetism, I suspect. But then Boringmeyer dies. Some weird death. And before he dies, knowing he was going to die, he shares his research with the person that became my first professor, a guy in Mexico.
Wow.
And so an obstetrician, he was head of obstetrics at the biggest hospital in Mexico City. And so those people, after Boringmeyer died, started practicing this, but kind of like in the shadows, because there was so much pushback at a governmental level, at a health department level.
Why do you think, though? Why does anyone give a shit if magnets are being used? Like, what's this? Who cares?
You can't patent them. The raw minerals. You cannot patent them and make buku bucks. Unless you put them in an MRI machine or in a cell phone, with other technology.
Yeah, package it up with something.
You cannot patent them.
So all those little biomagnets online with in the little red and black pouches and everything, like you can't patent any of those things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if you said his death was kind of odd, and I'm like, God, I don't want to put on the
40 minutes without a conspiracy theory.
I didn't want to put on my tinfoil hat, but there was a minute there where all these holistic health practitioners were turning up dead in boating accidents and plane crashes and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to go down this hole, but it's a story that I keep hearing, and it's like, what is there? And I'm wondering if I do believe that drug companies are intentionally keeping certain things that would cure us off the market. And I don't think I sound too crazy with that. And would it be something where it's like, oh crap, if this knowledge gets out, it destroys an industry.
Yeah. And, fortunately, I think after COVID, people have really begun a healthy level of skepticism with some of the medical treatments that we've been brainwashed to think are the only option. So people are starting to really question and look outside of the chemo and the radiation and the MRIs and, or radiated iodine for one, and looking for safer tests, more accurate tests. If you think about it, I mean, in conventional medicine, when you're dead, the forensic lab runs hair, nail, and saliva tests, and they figure out everything that's wrong with you, all the chemicals, all the germs. They can, to a T. Why is conventional medicine not using those tests in preventive health or in chronic health?
Well, I think that the topic Tom is touching on is the one we talk about here all the time. It's not really about preventing bad diseases.
It's about disease management.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that. And actually that kind of was leading into another kind of question. Do people could they use this prophylactically and just for health maintenance?
He was reading my mind there. What is best case scenario, I think, in a lot of these alternative or holistic fields is you use them before the thing sets up, right? You use this before you have the disease or you have the tendonitis or, so is there a prophylactic version of this?
I have many clients that come see me every 6 months. It's kind of like their routine checkup because they want to just prevent themselves because they've already gone through the process of clearing their body. We accumulate germs from the minute we're born, right? Western medicine says, oh, it's genetic. Well, maybe it's just shared germs. Maybe it's shared patterns of emotions, shared diet, shared, you're in the same space with these family members. Could it not just be shared? And the reason I say that is because if we can resolve it, if people can heal from it, then it can be genetic. Then most of this stuff that we've been brainwashed to think is genetic isn't.
I'm laughing because literally there was just we had this conversation with a guest not too long ago, but I had a different conversation from another study that they came out. They said, it's not genetic. It's the fact that you learn from your parents. So if your parents had a heart condition and all the stuff that led to that heart condition you're taught is normal, then you turn around and do the exact same thing. So okay, yes, there might be an actual gene that makes this express.
Well, and that's where we get into the epigenetics of it, right? Like you had the trigger, you just pulled it. Yeah.
Yeah. But if if your parents are eating pot roast 7 days a week and you're you go out into the world and you're like, hey, I want pot roast, but 7 is too much. 5 seems more rational to me. You're like, well, that's not enough different. You're probably going to end up in whatever the same place your parents were in, right? Not picking on pot roast, but you get where I'm going with this. It's okay, well, it's not to your point. And I'm laughing because you said that the universe is not a coincidence. Right. You're saying this. I'm like, many people are now saying it's not genetic.
Yeah.
Repeated patterns that, that we really need to work out.
I mean, I see a lot of people that if they come in with an STD or if they come, in with some major issue and they've got tons of parasites. And I'm like, well, in order to really nip this in the bud, we're going to have to see your partner, or your spouse, because if not, you guys are sharing a good 50% of the germs.
Right.
And it's just going to be a revolving door if we don't clear it in him as well as you. I mean,
I love those people that the mom and dad are at the mall and one of them's got a mask on and the other one doesn't. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. The second you get home, that's an issue. So Gaya, go ahead.
I'm just I'm
Gaya. You mentioned muscle testing and 500 different things. What does, I guess, with you specifically, because that way I think you'll give us the cleanest answer you can. What does that look like? Is this a really long, I guess, diagnosis process? How quickly do you move through 500 different variables?
I mean, I do it really quickly, but I've also been doing it for 15 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
I actually teach a kinesiology class, and it's a 3-hour class, and people within 3 hours, they really learn a variety of ways to be able to get the signals from their body, whether it's through their eyes, through their fingers, through their hands, through their whole body, through their legs. I mean, there's so many ways in which our body sends us signals. So learning that first and being able to get into a neutral space and knowing what kinds of questions to ask and how to ask those questions, I think is key. Because if we can't get ourselves into a neutral space, then our mind is kind of playing tricks on us.
Okay.
Right. So that for me is really important. And then, a lot of people come in and they say, well, this tested well, this tested well. Well, how well did it test? Did you just get a yes? And they say, yeah, the doctor told me he got a yes for this and this and this. And when I start exploring the level of benefit, like the percentage of benefit on a particular supplement, it could be a 1-2%. It's not worth taking.
Yeah.
If it's
so you're doing this through questioning or okay.
But not verbal questioning. I'm questioning their body, and then I'm questioning their medications. I'm questioning their supplements. I'm questioning their diet to see what is the best diet for them. What are the supplements that are going to really knock it out of the ballpark? If there are supplements they're taking that are just a waste of time and effort, if the medications are beneficial or harmful or both, to what degree. So people have more information when they walk away to say, wow, this medication helps me 10%, but it's harming me 80%. Should I really take it? And that's their choice, up to them. And I always say, well, I encourage you to talk to your doctor about this, because legally I have to.
Yeah. No, and so like you said, every 6 months for people that are doing it more as health maintenance. So this is not one of those things you need to throw into your morning meditation practice, right? This isn't like a daily situation that you need to.
I mean, I have many clients and students that use their magnets on a daily. And the reason why they do it is because they feel really good and they stay healthy and, or they're opening up their channels, because it doesn't just help us on a physical level, emotional or mental. It helps open up our doors. It helps open up our gifts, whether it's our psychic gifts, our intuitive gifts. It really helps us evolve so that we raise our consciousness. And that's the stuff that I get to see. I get to see this kind of transformation happening. And certainly I feel it's happened to me, and I'm continuing to work on myself that way. But I see that happen with others that may come in with box in the box thinking. And next thing you know, they've really kind of opened up their perspective of the world.
Interesting. That is pretty fascinating. So when you, I guess without a therapist to do that, are you just kind of shooting blind and sticking magnets on yourself, or is there still some kind of rigor around a process to do this stuff?
There's a whole process in how to do it. So you asked me, what does it look like? So I scan about 500 different body points. It takes me about 15 minutes to do that. And then I apply the magnets depending on what their body says is the right time of application. I will leave them on. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and a half, depending on what's going on with them. So whatever that period of time is the amount of time that I'll leave the magnets on them. And then when I'm finished, I will ask, okay, do they benefit from another session? If so, when? Because at the end of the day, I think that the wisdom is inside of us. I could come up with a plan, but that would be me in my head, right? Or thinking business. But if I really focus on what's the right thing for my client, then I'm going to ask their body.
That's really fascinating. This topic is interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I may or may not have magnets in my Amazon cart now. I'm just no.
They should be neodymium because they're more powerful than the ferrite.
Well, I mean, I didn't even get into what's a Gauss. Tell me about these magnets and the surface Gauss and all this other stuff, because I'm a nerd at heart, and I'm just I made some inferences there, but I could ask you a bunch of nerdy tech questions too. I don't know if you cared about any of those things, but yeah, this stuff's fascinating to me, right? Because I've when there's a measurement, man, you want to know how to get me hooked on something, show me that there's a measurement on something, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, how do you measure that? Do you have to buy a tool for that? How do you what is that? What's 1 versus 12? I don't know, so that's how I kind of rabbit hole and spiral into these things.
Well, the other day I had a client who had taken 2 strips. She wanted to use them for her abdomen. And so she took, it's 6 magnets within a strip, right? And so she had 2 of these strips, she took them. And then she shared how her sister had this major issue. It landed in the hospital and was having a lot of pain. And so she drove to go see her sister and took her strips with her. She's like, you know what, I'm going to take them with me just in case. And she applied them without knowing. She didn't know. She applied them just based on the little information I gave her. She applied them to her sister and her pain went away. And she hasn't had pain since. So this was really empowering for her because she was like, okay, she used both polarities. She used both the negative and positive. And again, you can use that unless you've had chemo and radiation or tons of MRIs with radiated iodine. That's the safest way to use magnets, is to use both polarities. If you don't know what you're doing, just use them with both polarities.
And that's interesting, though. If I wanted to intentionally alkalize my blood, having nothing to do with MRIs or cancer or anything like that. Like, I mean, I assume it still works the same way.
Yes. So as long as you use the negative polarity, you're always going to increase alkalinity. It's important to understand that there are certain tissues within our body that are supposed to operate on the more acidic, like our stomach, gastric juices. They're supposed to be acidic to break down food. That's not to say that sometimes the stomach is too acidic, right? And so alkalining it can bring it back to reset it back to normal. The negative polarity has more of a calming effect, an oxygenating of our bloodstream. It has like a soothing. It's kind of like the water or the moon. It's that kind of, a feminine energy. So it has that relaxation point. So for people that aren't sleeping well, using the negative polarity will put them to sleep or calm them down. Have a cooling. If they have a lot of heat in their body, then the negative polarity has a cooling effect to bring down the body temperature.
So what do you think about something that is not clearly as specific, like some of these magnet pads, these mats that you just lay on? Is it too general? Is there still some benefit to them?
I mean, it's hard to say. For example, I had a friend who lent me her magnet pad. I was having some pain in my back, and she's like, "Oh, use it." So I'm like, "Okay, it can't hurt." So I used it, and then 2 days later, I had shingles. So it triggered to bring out something that was in my body. I'm not saying that was a bad thing, because maybe it was, this virus that I need to clear out of my system. But could I have gone about it in a different way had I been more strategic with my biomagnetism versus that? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
but I would say that generally, they should be helpful.
Yeah, they have them for every body part under the sun.
My clinical question is, did the shingles erupt at the same nerve root that you had back pain in? Like, was it low back wrapping around the hips, or was it somewhere else in your body?
Yeah, it for sure was. It was there, latent.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I moved the mat, and then next thing I got, poof, I have this eruption. So it might have come out anyway. So that's the only experience I have with the mats. Right. So it's hard for me to say. I can't give you an educated, answer.
No, I mean, that's valid. You had an experience.
But here's the other thing about that, though, and I think this adds to this sort of snake oil part of it, where you see all these websites. Oh, copper. You see the same thing with copper. They'll put copper in anything and say it'll cure you, right? Socks, sweatshirts, bandanas. I mean,
they mix copper with magnets. Look, I got a little ring one here for my
copper
my arthritis in my thumb
all together. Yeah, I mean, but like you can buy them for every body part on your body, but it feels like, is this just bullshit? But B, is it a therapeutic dose of the thing you're buying anyway? Like, I mean, if I have a bunch of little, 0.5 Gauss magnets and like a therapeutic dose for my shoulder is 5,000, then this thing isn't doing anything, right? Like, it's not even like, or I'd have to wear it for 6 months straight in order to get it to do anything. Like,
that's kind of a good observation there, Matt, because like maybe the dose, like like you can take 3 regular strength Advil, or you can take 1-800. Right. So is it a different? Does this come down to a more of a dosing question? A smaller, weaker magnet needs to be applied longer?
What I do is that depending on the area of the body, I'll use a different size magnet with different gaussage.
Okay.
So I'll use smaller ones on the head. If I'm working on children, I'll use my smaller ones. If I'm working on a small pet, I'll use smaller ones. If I'm working on a bigger organ or tissue or a big tumor, then I'll use bigger gauss, right?
Okay.
Because ultimately, it's a magnetic field that's penetrating through the bones and tissues to have an impact. So the bigger the gauss, the more you're going to penetrate. But obviously, I'm not going to put some big magnet on my head, with all those little nerve endings and all the kind of stuff that's going on up there, because a smaller one can do just as good of a job.
Well, you say obviously, but for those of us where this is not obvious, what happens if I take a 5,000 Gauss magnet and chunk it on my head? What's the threat matrix of this modality here?
I can't say in terms of threat. It's more when I connect and I muscle test, I'll ask, should I be using bigger ones or not? So it's kind of like part of the technique is to really kind of do what's right for the body versus what I just think is a good idea.
I gotcha.
So we go back to the body has the answers. Ask the body, it'll give you the answers. And intuitively, for people that don't have a technique, I would say intuitively, does it feel good or does it feel like too heavy of a strain? Because you can feel it, right? And if it feels too heavy, if you feel like kind of a experience, because that's kind of like how I could describe it verbally.
Yeah.
Then probably use something smaller. Right?
I see. So
something
it's very
more of a relaxing type of like calming versus like.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. But like, there's no, at least to your knowledge, there's no sort of like too much magnet. You can't overdose on magnets, or can you?
I don't think so. I've never seen anything like that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Because that's always my curiosity is like, we play with a bunch of gadgets here and I'm like, this is cool. But like the other day I was using one and it made me a little nauseous. And I realized I'd been using it for like 30 minutes straight and it was at the highest intensity and everything was like, I was just basically hitting the gas pedal, burying it on the floor. Like, go. And I don't know that was the right idea, but my body said, hey, bro, time to hit the off switch, man, or else I'm going to make you throw up all over the family room. Like that's where that was heading.
I think the more that we're in tune with our body's signals, then the more we realize, like sometimes I'll sleep with them on and I can leave them on the whole night, but there comes a point where they just bother me and I just like take them off.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. I feel like, okay, I'm cooked. That's it.
Yeah. I'm good. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I guess before we get to the sort of commercial side for you, one last sort of practical question. This, like, when you teach people it, who are the people that are coming to you? Are these like the wounded healer type mentality that we see a lot of on this show?
Are they licensed in other fields?
Or are they licensed in other things? And this is rounding out their professional CV, or like who are the people that are usually taking that class?
It just really, it's a broad range. It could be the mom that wants to help the child or the person that has their own issue and they want to help heal themselves and they just want to use it for their family or their pets. Or then you have the people who are practitioners, people who've trained in biomagnetism and other modalities. And they're like, you know what, I want to take it I want to learn this particular form of biomagnetism. And then you have people who are doctors and nurses and they're in some sort of health field or they have nothing to do with the health field, but they're drawn to it and they want to learn it and they're interested because they've seen something in terms of results. And so they really want to add this to their tool belt.
Yeah. I got to admit, I got excited when you said you train because, not that I'm in a position to do it right now, but I think I could see myself enjoying this therapy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you ever had any podcast guests hosts that want to take a training class? Yeah, no, I think it is a cool thing for sure, and I agree. We got other priorities at the moment, but like this is officially on the maybe list. I'd have to say because it is super interesting.
Yeah, it's simple medicine at the end of the day. I mean, the natural medicines are simple medicines.
They are,
right?
Aren't they?
They're simple medicines, and they can really transform your life. I mean. Tom, you've helped people with infertility issues, be able to have a baby. I mean, how much more transformative is that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've never had that experience, but like on the healing side, I agree with you, man. 15 minutes on
you've helped
PMF.
at least one other person make a couple kids.
Yeah. Right. I have that. Exactly. Yes. But yeah, like even just when you notice you're like, hey, like I hurt my shoulder and like, I swear by PMF, Tom, I've bored everybody with the story a million times, but when I get hurt, like at the gym, because I lifted too much or I strained something, I was carrying a heavy Christmas present up the stairs and hurt my back. When I go to town with just my PMF mat and like just really focus on it, it goes away 100 times faster than it would have. Right. And maybe that is placebo effect, but I don't know because like it's pretty specific, right? Like I'm not gonna get this hockey puck that I'm putting exactly where it hurts and everything kind of just rearranges. But that simplicity is very intoxicating because you're like, look, I can make this very complicated with various stretches and cortisone shots and this and the other thing. Or I could just do this super easy, basically just working with the Earth's magnetic resonance, like you were saying, and that's it, done.
I mean, it's science. It's electricity, and it's influencing our electricity. It's like, you know, when your battery of your car dies, what do you do to get it started again? You put the red, which is a positive.
Yeah.
You put the black, which is the negative, and the car moves. So how could we not have it when all of our cells and atoms are electricity too? So it's simple medicine. It's not woohoo stuff. We're influencing our electric charges.
Well, I think the other thing that I really love about this guy is Matt and I in our early episodes, before we got hip and had guests, would kind of like talk about a topic, and then we'd have like this rating system. And one of the variables was like the likelihood to hurt yourself. You know, like, and that weighs sometimes heavier than price and those kind of things. And like, with barring a very few specialized conditions, it sounds like the worst thing that's going to happen is nothing. You know, I mean, in the worst case scenario, you glued some, you taped some magnets to yourself and nothing happened.
Right.
You know, and I think that speaks to it as much as the upside, right? Oh, all of these amazing things can happen, but you're not going to hurt yourself is a pretty rare statement if we're looking at it from a drug or a surgery or another modality that may be more invasive, you know?
100%. I think that's why I fell in love with it, because I realized, wow, you know, it would be really hard to do harm with something like this, you know.
Yeah, no, it does sound like that.
Hitting somebody with it, or it snaps and it pinches you, because sometimes they snap together.
Oh yeah,
that's about it, really, you know. And in those very few instances,
I broke a finger in college because a friend, my roommate, had the two big giant magnets that go on the back of speakers, and I was messing around with them, and it just clicked, and my finger was right between them, and it literally broke my finger. And I was like, yeah, that's not great. But I mean, they were huge. These magnets are like palm size, and they're, 2 inches thick. So, like you have to like get a pry bar to take that thing off of something that you got it stuck to. It's just like way too much. Right. So you don't put one of those on, you don't use anything like that kind of strength, right? Like this practice isn't that strong, right?
I don't know how strong it is, but not like that. I have like that, but I don't use them typically in therapy. The only time that I really used that level of, I mean, we're talking about a huge neodymium magnet.
Yeah.
That thick and that big, was when I flew out of my attic. I was on the ladder on the top step, and the ladder slipped, and I hit my back on the 2x4 entrance of the attic.
Ouch. Hit
it so hard that I smacked the other side, and then held on for dear life because I thought I broke my back. Ooh. And my kids heard me screaming like, "Mom!" And I finally let go, land on the floor, crawled to my bed, and I said, with the breath that I could catch to say 2 words, was like, "Bring me my big magnet. Careful.
Bring me the big birth.
Bring me the big one."
They go into the biometric safe retina scan. They're like, "All right, here we go." Yeah,
like you hear like a stone door sliding open.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. 100%.
Magnet on, and the next day I had like, the dot of a pencil mark. Mm-hmm. That was the size of my bruise.
Wow, that's great.
And went to work. I didn't have nerve pain. I had nothing. I mean, people just from twisting sometimes could hurt themselves worse because of the germs they have in their body. But like, literally that size of pain.
I slipped on ice 20 years ago, and my SI joint still fucking hurts. 20 years ago, Gaya. 20 years ago. It's not, it doesn't hurt all the time, but to your point, like if I do like yoga class and I go a little bit too much on that twist, or if I, do something a little crazy in a hold or something, it absolutely bothers me. And it's been 20 years.
I was going to say, Matt, you probably have to put a magnet up your ass.
I mean, seriously, I have been living with this for way too long. So now I'm curious. I'm like, shit, do I go find that speaker magnet and just like sit on it for a couple days? Yeah.
I use the negative polarity on that big magnet, just for clarification. So
yeah.
Wound healing. But I mean, I developed scoliosis from falling off of a horse at full gallop. The saddle was loose, and then I had to throw myself off. Mm-hmm. And here I'm in my, early 40s when who would have thought my back would correct itself? That was like, what, 15 years ago. So it's like, I never expected my scoliosis to go away.
And, you know, Guy, one thing that I guess we can keep going on this forever, but the one thing that I think is cool about what you're practicing here is like, you know, we all talk about life extension and longevity and all these things, but like, you know, what good is living to 120 if you don't have ways to fix? Look, if I'm living to 120, I'm out there running marathons. I'm running around doing stuff, visiting people. Like, I'm not sitting around on my
You don't want
ass.
to be bedridden. Yeah.
And guess what's going to happen? I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to shovel my walkway and fall down. Like, shit's going to happen because it's life, you know, like, and I want to have things in the arsenal to be able to be like, okay, let's right this ship, because I don't want to be hung up in bed for 6 months because of something stupid, you know. So these are easy things to kind of know about and keep in your arsenal and say, hey man, time to pull out the big magnet. You know, I want my kids to have that moment with me someday where I'm like, get the big one. Like I'm going in. Yeah. So, well, Guy, listen, man, it was awesome having you.
Yeah.
This was super informative. I really enjoyed myself. Let's get to the commercial for you. Tell people where to find you, anything you want to share,
what
socials,
you're up to,
websites,
all that stuff.
all that neat stuff.
Well, my company's called The Magnet Lady. That was given to me by my clients. So my website is themagnetlady.net. I have a book, Beyond the White Coat, A Return to Earth's Medicine, available on Amazon. And I have, a remote practice and 2 practices, both in South Carolina and in Miami. And if you're interested in learning more, then visit my website, magnetlady.net. I have classes, some free webinars, and yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that the magnet gig is so prolific for you that you have to have 2 practices. Like, that's awesome.
It is attracting client. Jesus Christ. I didn't even want to say it. I didn't even want to say it. I had to get one dad joke in there.
Yeah, listen, it had to be said. Yeah, it had to be said. I'm sure Guy's got a t-shirt or something that says something like that. There's probably no shortage of magnet puns out there. I'm sure of it.
Yes. No,
all right, Guy, listen, I had a great time. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.